To make a willow basket, I begin by collecting small willow branches. I prefer the fresher, greener ones as they're easier to work with. Willow branches snap right off the limb extremely easily. The next step is to process the branches. I simply run my hand in the opposite directions that the leaves are growing, and they come right off easily. As I process them, I also separate them into two different bundles. I use the larger branches as my ribbing, and the smaller ones I use as my weavers. I'll then narrow my ribs down to about 5 or 6 similar sized branches. And then I'll need a very large pile of smaller sized ones to weave in between them. I separate my larger sticks into 2 bundles, and then I form a cross with them. I'll then use a smaller stick to bind the 2 bundles together. I'll wrap it around going over and under and secure it tightly. When I come to the end of the stick, I'll simply push it back into the lashing I just formed. Once I've made my cross, I'll then take my knife and remove one of the sticks. This way I'll have an uneven number of spokes. If we were to keep an even number of spokes, the weaving process would not work. I'll begin my weaving by pushing one end of one of my smaller sticks into the lashing. I will then go over and under each spoke while separating them out with my fingers. Continue trying to separate the spokes with your fingers as you weave, and try to get them evenly spaced as possible. If you go on the bottom side of a spoke on the first pass, on the second pass you should be going on the top side, and vice versa. Just like when we were lashing our cross together, when we come to the end of our weaver, we'll then weave it back into itself. Once we have the bottom of our quiver the size that we want, we'll then push all of our spokes upwards to form the sides of the quiver. Be careful not to break them. I then like to take another small willow branch and tie the top together. This makes it much easier to keep my spokes in place as I weave. Once I have my spokes where I want them, I'll then just continue the weaving process on the outside, going in and out of each spoke. I continue doing this until I get high enough with my weaving that my spokes stay in place on their own. I then remove the lashing on the top. If one of your spokes breaks or it becomes too thin, all you have to do is simply push a new spoke next to it and keep going. My container is not actually going to be a quiver, so this step is not necessary for me. When you get your container the size you want, you simply push one spoke over down into the spoke next to it. Not only does this finish your basket, but it also looks nice. Just remember, the size and shapes of your containers are only limited by your imagination. When you're done, your container should look similar to this.